So my main disagreement with you is on the subject of transgenderism.
Mhm.
And what I've seen in the past is that you said one of your principal objections to the transgender movement is that you think accepting them into society won't necessarily help solve their problems. Is that like a fair characterization of what you say?
No, I mean, I think that I don't think it's fair in the sense that I think everybody should be treated with a certain level of dignity. But what I have said is that I don't think that the high transgender suicide rate is attributable to societal intolerance.
Okay, so I sort of disagree with, or I don't think the empirical evidence necessarily says that. I've seen studies from UCLA that have drawn different conclusions, but I realize if we disagree on the empirical evidence, not much can be resolved here tonight. So assuming that it would help to accept them more into society, would you change your position on transgenderism?
So the position on transgenderism I want to clarify so that I can tell you what I would change and what I wouldn't change. So what I would not change is the idea that you cannot force people to call you what you want to be called. That is anathema to a free society. I will also not change the idea that we should not indoctrinate children in blatant biological falsehoods like there's no such thing as male and female. I think it's very important that kids know there is such a thing as male and female, that these are real categories, and that a man cannot become a woman and a woman cannot become a man. I think that confusing children about this stuff carries its own inherent dangers. Kids are easily confused and easily screwed up. So I think that would not change. I've also said in conversations with people like Blair White, who's a transgender woman, meaning a man who believes he's a woman, I've said to Blair, like if we were at a restaurant or something and we were out to dinner together, I wouldn't go out of my way to call Blair White a he. I mean, presumably we'd be speaking in second person with one another. But at the same time, like for the same reason that, you know, there are people in my life who do lots of things that I disagree with, and I don't feel it necessary to launch a conflict on the basis of that every time we meet. But that's a different thing than what the transgender rights movement is saying. What they are saying is that society should cram down on people perceptions about biology that are false, that we should treat it as bigotry if you use the actual biological pronouns for people. This is a form of bigotry and hate, which is nonsense. It's just something you don't like. There are lots of things I don't like. It doesn't mean it's a form of bigotry and hate. And that's where I stand on this. So again, I think that we should try to treat people with as much civility as possible. And in my position as a public figure, you know, I am very often speaking on the general kind of issue. I'm not speaking on one-to-one, you know, out to lunch or something. That's a little bit of a different thing. You know, when my child is 4.5 years old, right? She comes to me and she will say, Dad, I drew a picture. Do you think that it's good? And the answer is yes. I mean, I love my daughter. Sure, the picture is great. Now, is that, if I'm an art critic, is that going to change my definition of good or art? No. I mean, if I were the art critic at the New York Times and I were reviewing my daughter's picture, I said, this is garbage. It's not good at all, right? I mean, but my public position is that I am the art critic at the New York Times discussing issues of public importance and public policy. I don't think that it is the responsibility of other people to protect your fragile mindset. With that said, if people wish to do so out of a certain level of sympathy, I certainly don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if you want to, in interpersonal connections, do that. But I think that teaching kids, as we are now being told, teaching kids that they must use preferred pronouns, or that men can become women can become men, sex doesn't exist, as a recent op-ed in the New York Times said, that's asinine, anti-scientific, and counterproductive.